Back in 1986, the children's TV programme Grange Hill confronted the issue of drug abuse and addiction in an uncharacteristically serious and hard hitting manner. One of the key characters, Zamo, was shown spiralling into heroin addiction, which was really groundbreaking at the time. Those few episodes spawned an anti drugs campaign in which children were urged to just say no. In turn, the campaign gave rise to a chart topping song that was also called Just Say No. And even though Grange Hill was a quintessentially English TV show, the anti drugs message spread, with members of the cast invited to the US to meet the First Lady, Nancy Reagan, who had actually coined the phrase in the first place. Just Say No went global. 40 years later, the combined UK demolition and construction industry would do well to reclaim that phrase and that defiance. Not as part of an anti drugs campaign, although that would be a good idea too, but to belatedly take a stand against the countless additional demands placed upon them by government, clients, and main contractors. Think about it. Some bright spark decided that we needed a pre qualification questionnaire just to get on a tender list. That was an additional imposition, but we let it slide. Many of the major contractors then decided they each needed their own specific PQQ, and if you wanted to work for them, you had no option but to comply. In the end, there were so many different PQQs that a number of companies sprang up to provide a one size fits all PQQ that subcontractors had to pay for. The system is now so complex and so bloated that some companies employ people purely to handle PQQs. As an industry, we stood idly by while the powers that be decided that anyone working at site level would require a competence card, which would cost money. And to get that competence card, the individual would need to sit a test or an exam, which would cost money. To retain that card, they'd need to sit refresher courses and tests, which would cost money. If their role required them to do a slightly different job and they needed another card, and they'd need another test, which would cost money. Most people said nothing because they knew their competence status was safe. They were granted a card under grandfather rights, so they said nothing. And then their grandfather rights were removed. This isn't just about individual workers. Companies were encouraged to join the Considerate Constructors scheme or to gain accreditation via CHAS or construction line, all of which are a further drain on a firm's bottom line. For decades, those working in the field of demolition and construction benefited from the red diesel subsidy until the government decided to remove that subsidy. The industry had plenty of time, more than 2 years, to unite and fight. Instead, it spent that 2 years staring at its shoes, hoping the government might change its mind. The government didn't, and industry fuel costs rocketed. For years, we've seen companies winning contracts at an agreed price. But before work can even begin, they're required to value engineer to make additional savings. In any other walk of life, that would be seen as a breach of contract. In construction, it's just the latest in a long line of impositions that have gone unchallenged. We've seen main contractors, some of the biggest and richest firms in the sector, openly boast about pushing out their payment terms from 30 to 60 and 60 to 90 days. And no one batted an eyelid. We've seen major firms insist upon additional 10% across the board discounts from all the firms in their supply chain. And that supply chain nodded obediently and complied. Most recently, we've seen the industry forced to adopt social value into their contracts. Firms already drowning in paperwork now have additional forms to fill out, assuring everyone that they will try to employ local people, that they'll try to safeguard the environment, and they'll do their best not to breach modern slavery rules. This is just the tip of the iceberg. In fact, each time someone on high conjures a new initiative, the sector falls over itself to fall into line, even though it will shave yet more from the margins that are already transparently thin. Part of the issue, of course, is the industry's lack of unity. The majors are extremely adept at securing compliance from one subcontractor at a time. And even when those subcontractors do huddle together for warmth within a trade association, they've aligned themselves with a small silo that barely has more influence than they do. And that association will charge them to be a member. And that association will impose yet another set of rules of their own. And those rules and regulations will keep on changing so that you keep on paying. It's not that we've lost the ability to say no, it's worse than that. We've lost the ability to pause for a moment, to consider the advantages and disadvantages of each new imposition, and to then give a considered answer, which in many cases should be a categorical, unequivocal, irrefutable, absolutely not. So the next time someone says they have a new scheme, a new campaign, or a new initiative to improve the demolition and construction industry, be like Zamo. Be like the cast of Grange Hill. Hell, be like Nancy Reagan. Just say no.